I do want to talk this morning about being holy and set apart in community and what that looks like, what that means to me, and I want to share that. And this is going to be our final week in the series. And I know that a lot of times I get slotted for the last one to kind of bat the cleanup. And I kind of started putting together some different things to kind of highlight each and every week that everybody's done. And then I said, no, I don't want to do that. So most people are on house arrest right now. If you haven't seen an episode, if you haven't been a part of one of the meetings, if you missed one of the podcasts, you've got plenty of time. You've got plenty of time on your hands, so please go back and listen. Brian started us off talking about the foundation of it all, and it's just been building ever since. My heart has been so encouraged. I've been encouraged. I've been convicted. I've been spurred on. There's been so many things, and to me, that happens every time that we're going through a topic like this. So I do just want to get right into talking about community. I absolutely cannot believe for myself and for all of us how timely this is, to have to sit and intentionally think about community in a time like this. And for myself to have to redefine community. So for anyone who knows me even remotely, being away from people is the worst thing on the planet to me. I hate this, and I don't say that as somebody who's complaining, but I say it as someone who's literally like craving my church family, my friends, all of that type of stuff. Kevin can even attest to this. There may have been a day or two this week or 5 that I was not the most pleasant person to be around. And on top of that, I was brilliant enough 2 days before all of this happened to start a wonderful cleanse. So I'm also detoxing and away from people. So you guys can really pray for my husband, because he could use the long suffering to be with me. But we are pulling out of it. I am in the good part of the whole 30 stretch, to where my attitude is lifting and I'm getting more encouragement. And then obviously just being in the room with some of my friends is helping as well. So anyway, I just want you all to know that community is valuable and it's important to me, and that's why I just am loving that this is what we're talking about today. I want to open with this, I want to just share this quote again. Kevin shares it a lot. It's on our website. We think about it often, and it's a quote from Brennan Manning. A community of prophets and professional lovers, men and women who would surrender to the mystery of the fire of the Spirit that burns within, and who would live in greater fidelity to the omnipresent Word of God. And I love that. I love that because the thing, to me, the core of it is that we are men and women who are surrendered to the mystery of the fire of the Spirit. That's the thing that's burning. That's the common thread. That's the gel keeping us all together, keeping us all unified, is being a part of that community. And I've just been thinking this whole time, Brian started the series by talking about, if we're going to talk about what it means to be holy and set apart, first we have to figure out what holiness is and who we're set apart to. And if you missed that, I've probably listened to it 9 times because there's so much meat in it and it's so rich. So I do encourage you to go back to the very beginning. But we remember that. We remember that holiness is the Lord. It's not something that came into existence when sin happened, so therefore now we have this contrary thing. That's not what it is. He is holy. He is pure. He is all of those things. They are who he is. And we are set apart to him. And we are set apart, and we are a part of that community that has been in existence since the beginning of time. Community has always been, because the Father, Son, Spirit have always been facing each other together, loving one another, being in connection to each other. And I was reading this. I was kind of doing some studying yesterday and reading online that God is love. And love has to have love is expressive. Love is external. It's something that's always outward. It requires interaction. It requires community. It has to be. It cannot exist without it. And I love that about the Father. And through all of that, he's saying, come. I think so many times, I guess Brian's getting a lot of credit today. I think so many times to one of the first times that Brian preached at DCC, back when they were still living in Atlanta or South Carolina, I don't even remember. And he set up chairs in a circle. I don't know if anybody remembers this back at the Y. And he was sharing that concept of being face to face, how the Father, Son, Spirit are always face to face, always facing one another, and how we're invited into that community to be a part of that face to face, and that we're being looked at and that we're being recognized. And I think I came to that realization within these last 2 years. And I know almost every time I speak, I bore you with the details of the fact that the last 2 years, God has just been radically transforming me and has brought me through a time of being set free from anxiety and panic attacks and all of these types of things. And he did it in that, is I came to the realization that I was already a part of that community, that I was no longer striving to get in, that I didn't have to crawl on my knees, and I didn't have to beg, and I didn't have to perform, which was the thing that constantly kept being my hang up, is I felt like every time I would not perform properly, I was exiled from the community. And then every once in a while I would get just enough to get a taste of it. And that's not what it's about. That's not what God's created. That's not why Jesus came. He came to say, I have a seat for you at the table. I remember probably about a year ago, I had this dream, and it was significant to me at the time with some situations that were going on in my life, but God brought it back to my memory this morning because I was thinking about it just even in this context. And in this dream, there were all of these people sitting around a table, and I came to the table and they told me that I was welcome. And so I was all excited, of course, oh, this is amazing. So I'm scrambling and looking around, and finally I found this crate over in the corner. And I grabbed this crate and I went and sat it down at the table. And I was like this, sitting at the table because everybody else is sitting at a chair that belongs to the table. And I just remember in this dream, the Father just came up to me and said, no. This is your seat. I have a seat for you, that you don't have to scooch a crate up and be just enough, and you don't have to eat scraps. This is your seat. You have your own seat at the table because this is my desire for you. I want you. You are in this community. And I know it seems like I'm just talking about me in community with the Father. So what does that look like for us as a community? To me, it's the same. It's the same. It's part of understanding my place in that community as a daughter, as understanding that I have that seat, and that through that, the Father, the Son, the Spirit, they're face to face with me. They're communing with me. They're talking to me about wholeness, about trust, about all these different things. And they're taking me into this place of understanding this beautiful union. And as they're doing that, through natural reaction, want to talk to Ed and say, Ed, guess what the Lord shared with me? Guess what he did? And through that conversation and through this dialogue, because then Ed might return with, guess what the Lord shared with me? Well, we're all sitting in the community now together. We're all together. We're all one. We're inviting people to sit at that table as well, and to remember that they're in that community and they're a part of that community, and we're encouraging them at the table, or maybe we're encouraging them for the first time. And I keep going back, God just keeps saying, Jamie, go back to the basics. The basics are me and you and the bride. And I'm so overwhelmed by it, especially right now when I feel like we have to be all over the place, and I feel like we have to be separated, and I feel like all of these things are trying to stand in the way of my understanding of the fact that we're community. But just like I can't see the Father, and I can't see you, or I can't see whoever, it doesn't mean we're not community, and it doesn't mean we're not still together, and it doesn't mean that the Father doesn't have great and mighty and amazing things to do. I want to read this verse to you that kind of stood out to me a little bit today, just kind of thinking through some of these things, and it's in Hebrews 10, verse 19 is where it starts. It says, so friends, we can now, without hesitation, walk right up to God, right up to the table, to the holy place. Jesus has cleared the way by the blood of his sacrifice, acting as our priest before God. The curtain to God's presence is his body. So let's do it, full belief, confident that we're presentable inside and out. And let's keep a firm grip on the promises that keep us going. He always keeps his word. Let us see how inventive we can be in encouraging love and helping out, and not avoiding worshiping together as some do, but spurring one another on, especially as we see the day approaching. So I know we could take the scripture and say, well, we're not together, but we are. We are worshiping together. When you're on the phone with your friends, you're worshiping together. When you're at home with your family, you're worshiping together. So we still have to be intentional about these things. We still have to go forward. You know, I kept thinking, I'm like, why do I struggle with some of these concepts so much about community and about the beauty of it, and about the beauty of it being me appreciating Christian for who Christian is and being excited about the things Christian's excited about. And I think it's because somehow I developed this mindset that God is this being that just wants my service, right? We've talked about this many, many, many times, that he just wants my service, and I have to perform and I have to do these certain things, and that's his interest with me. And I feel like because I have that so backwards, it filters out into my community. I forget the fact that we're face to face and we're in this relationship, and the Father, the Son, and the Spirit are interested in the things I'm interested in, and and I'm interested in what they're interested in, and there's this beautiful like fluidity going on. And that's the same with our communities, and that's the same with our practice. I think so. I think about this story that Baxter, a guy that I like to follow, he shared one time. He said that he took a flight somewhere. He was doing a teaching at a seminary. I could be getting some of the details wrong, but I'll get the heart of it correctly. So a seminary student picks him up. They're traveling in the car back to wherever it is he's staying or whatever, and they're just chit-chatting. And so Baxter says to him, he says, so, you know, what are you going to do after seminary? What are you going to do? And the kid says, well, I'm going to be a pastor, obviously. You know, I'm going to be a pastor or a missionary. I don't know, but I'm going to do one of those things. And Baxter said, so as we're having this dialogue, a man in a tractor pulls out in front of them and is just driving down the street in a tractor. And he said, so I asked the kid, so what do you think God's like to that guy? And the kid's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, what do you think? What do you think their dialogue's like? What do you think their conversation is like? What do you think things are like? And the kid's like, well, I don't have any idea. I don't know. And he said, well, son, you better find out. Because if you're going to pastor, if you're going to be a part of a community of believers, we should find out what that's like for him, what his interests are, what his passions are, what his love is. You know, we should be thanking God for the farmer. We should be lifting him up and praying for him and being passionate about his interests, because that's the concept of the Lord that I've been missing for so many years, that God is just like igniting my heart with. It's the fact that he's interested in what I'm interested in, and he wants to participate and be a part of what I'm participating in, and he also wants me to participate in what he's participating in. He doesn't have like this edict for my life that he expects me to follow. He literally wants to hang out together and enjoy life together. He wants to go be with the farmer and make the produce or the cattle or whatever and care for the animals and do all those things together with him. It's not that he told the farmer, you're a farmer now, you farm, that's what you do. No, he's like, hey, let's go take care of the cows today. Let's do this together. Let's provide food for people. Let's do this. And that's the community that's being created. And through that, then our community is also me investing in the interests of people around me, and them also being invested in my interests. And so why am I even talking about all that? What does that even mean? Well, I say all that to say we're not in a time, and God's not asking us to abandon who we are. That's not what being community is. Community doesn't have to be created. It doesn't have to be formulated. It doesn't have to be whatever. Community is just a gathering of people who continue to value each other and gather around something, right? And we're gathered around the Father, the Son, the Spirit. We already have this beautiful thing uniting our hearts and taking us together. And through that, we get to participate in one another's lives and one another's things. And as we are going about the world and we're being community and we're touching lives and doing all of those things, the most effective way to do that is to care about the person that's in front of us. To say, I'm holy and set apart to the Father. And just like when Jesus came and he went fishing and he went and sat in the tax collector's house and he went and did all the things he did, he went to be a part of people. And I understand that right now, we're kind of in a situation. I mean, Michigan's on a lockdown. We're not supposed to be out just interacting and doing all of those things. That doesn't mean we can't be community. It doesn't mean we can't be salt. It doesn't mean we can't be light. We still should be those things. I mean, the first church, they were scattered. When they started getting momentum, what's the first thing that happened? They came in, they scattered them all over the place. And instead of us looking at it as, now these are discouraging times, and now I've been shipwrecked, and now I can't do anything until this order's lifted, they said, oh, well, I guess I'm just gonna reach out wherever I'm at. And Stephen's walking along and ends up in a chariot with somebody and taking care of, helping him understand scriptures. And other people are out preaching to the Greeks, and they're finding themselves in all these situations, all these circumstances that they would never have been in. And they just continued being who they were. And just continued doing it in community, face to face with the Father, and saying, hey, we invite you. We invite you. Come be a part. Come be a part. Not come be a part of this church, not come be a part of this thing, but come be a part of the life that is flowing, this great dance, this beautiful movement, and see face to face with the Lord and let him look at you and say, you matter, and you're valuable, and I love you. And let that light shine in such a way. I was at the office the other day. I work in transportation, so we are classified as essential, which I don't know, that term is not really my favorite, but nonetheless. So I have been in the office with one other coworker, and then a lot of the rest of our staff we've all been taking different methods to get our work done. And we were in the office before the shutdown happened, and one of our vendors came in to visit. And because it was just me and another coworker who's a believer, we picked the music that we wanted to listen to that day. And so we picked some Bethel worship or something, just had it playing all day. So I end up in an all-day meeting with these guys and just kind of talking business, purely business, going through things. Well, the very next day, he sends me an email. Hey, I'm just curious, what was the music you guys were playing? And so I just sent back to him, it's a podcast channel or a stereo channel or whatever of Bethel music. And he said, it was amazing. He said, it was the first time I felt peace in a long time with all the things that are going on in the world. He said, I'm gonna play it at my whole office. I'm gonna have everybody listen to it. I'm like, this is awesome. So that's something that was easy, that just kind of happened out of my default. So I've just been kind of praying into that, like, okay, Lord, what are other opportunities? Because that was just a default that happened. What could happen if I do things intentionally? What could happen if I'm like literally honed into how can I encourage these people? How can I say to this group, you're welcome to the table. You're welcome into this community. You're a part. God has amazing restoration for you and healing for your body and wholeness for your soul and all that. Like how much more if I was actually intentional and not just on my default? I wasn't listening for music to be a light. I was doing it for me, and it just happened to pour out. So the thing that was so interesting to me about it was the peace of God that he noticed. I believe so strongly that right now, the hearts of people are so wide open. The soil of the hearts of those around us is so soft. And I believe that the things of the Lord are being more noticeable for folks. It's more tangible to them. Not because God did anything different, because he's good. He did it all. But because we're just starting to see it, we're starting to notice it more. It's more I don't know what the term would be, but it's just, everyone seems to be just slightly more aware because I think our hunger is growing, knowingly or not. And I just was thinking about that. I'm like, wow, that lives in me. That dwells in me. That's in my family. That's in my church community. That's that's there, it's present because the Spirit of God is in me. So peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, all those things are in me. And they're just sort of happening from my person. And the more that I'm face to face in that community with the Father and with those that are in that community with me, it's becoming more obvious. It's becoming more apparent to those around me. So how much more if I was intentional to being somebody who wants to shine that light brighter. I love that Paul Young says it like this: the fruit of the Spirit is not, it is who God is. It's not something he dispenses when I decide to call on him for it. So the Spirit of God is inside of me. The fruit of God is inside of me, and that's who he is. And he's not waiting for me to ask him to dispense it. Instead, he's saying, it's available, Jamie. Give it out. Hand it out. Be someone who is flowing that out of your body, because there are people who need peace, who need patience, who need someone to be gentle with them today, because everyone in their life has been hostile or whatever the situation may be. We have such an opportunity right now. We have such an opportunity. We have such an open door to be a voice of hope as a group of passionate Jesus followers, lovers. What are we doing? Because a community that just gets together and hangs out, to me, is pretty lame. And so what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do to be a community that's on the move, that's on the change, that's being a part of what the Lord is doing? And I wanna read to you. Again, this has been in the weekly continually. I'm pretty sure we've probably shared it every week, but I want to read it again. I pulled it up out of the Message, which I always enjoy because it has words that I understand. I apologize. 1 Peter 2, starting in verse 9. But you are the chosen, or you are the ones chosen by God, chosen for the high calling of priestly work, chosen to be a holy people, God's instruments to do his work and to speak out for him, to tell others of the night and day difference he made for you, from nothing to something, from rejected to accepted. Friends, this world is not your home, so don't make yourselves cozy. Don't indulge your ego at the expense of your soul. Live an exemplary life among the natives so that your actions will refute their prejudices. Then they'll be won over to God's side, and be there to join in the celebration when he arrives. Make the master proud of you by being good citizens, respecting the authorities, whatever their level. They are God's emissaries for keeping order. It is God's will that by doing good, you might cure the ignorance of fools who think you are a danger to society. Exercise your freedom by serving God, not breaking rules. Treat everyone you meet with dignity. Love your spiritual family, revere God, respect the government. I did read it all on purpose. So what does that mean? What does that mean? There is nothing happening right now, in my opinion. Maybe you have a different opinion, we can talk about that. But to me, there's nothing happening right now that is preventing us from touching people around us in an encouraging and positive way, and being an expanding community that is impacting this city and the globe, other than ourselves. And other than what I keep labeling as my default. I was talking to a friend last night. We were talking just back and forth about how in our mind, we have this mindset that our flesh is our default and that we're trying to cancel that. That's not truth. I'm born again in Christ. He's my default. He's what I operate from. What's happened is not that my flesh became my default, but that I became comfortable, as Peter's talking about, in the world. I became cozy in it. And so therefore it feels easier to me. It feels more comfortable to me to not spend an hour on the phone with somebody who I'm really not that interested in talking to. Instead of igniting with the heart of Jesus, who says, how's this person doing? How can I encourage them? How can I lift them up? How can I pray for them? And for each and every one of us, this expanding, this intentional community is gonna look different. You know, maybe God's telling you to suit up and to go pray for people. I've heard that from some people this week, that they wanna cover all up in gloves and garb and go pray for people. If you wanna know who they are, give me a call, I'll let you know. If you need prayer, they'll come right to your house. They're not afraid. I'm just saying, maybe that's what God's calling you to do. Maybe God's calling you to write down 2 names like my neighbor and call those people every day and ask how they're doing and pray for them and encourage them. Maybe, I don't know, maybe God's telling you to bring groceries to someone. You know, you can do that without interaction. Maybe God's telling you to bring, I don't know. Ask the Father, what do you want me to do? What's my active participation in this community? Because I don't want to just sit here and call myself a community. Church, we are a community. That's not going to change. You're my family. And if we never see each other again and we live in our houses and the doors are closed and all of that, you're still my family. But I want to be a community that's actually impacting the lives of others. And I want to invite them to the table with the Father, the Son, the Spirit that has changed my life, has brought freedom and liberty and restoration and wholeness to my heart. There are people out there that are broken right now and scared and full of anxiety and full of fear, and they don't know what to do. There are people who are sick, who are dying, and they have no answer, and we have the answer. We're literally sitting across the table face to face with the answer. But if I just sit there and if I'm not having the conversation, if I'm not being an active community, maybe that person never gets introduced to the person that was my job to introduce them to. Or maybe they don't get introduced to you, and you could make an everlasting change in their life and a difference in their lives. We have to be a community on the move. We have to be a community operating within the structure that we've been given, changing this world forever. So I just want to close you or I just want to end this, and we're going to go back to a response song. But I want to close with one quote that I love, and I bet you I've thought about it 100 times a day. And it's by A.W. Tozer, and he says, "In a scared world, we need a fearless church." And in my opinion, a fearless church is on the move. So let's pray. Father, thank you so much for this incredible day. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for all that you've done. I thank you that you are providing and caring for us. I thank you that you are watching over us. I thank you that your plans are good and not evil. And I thank you, Lord, that you will take this thing and you will work it for your good. I do not believe you're the creator of it. I do not believe it started with you, but I believe that you will take it and you will use it for your good. And that I believe, Father, that the church will rise up and will start acting on what is ours. And we will start drawing people to your heart and being about your reconciliation. And I thank you. I thank you. I thank you that even though distance may separate us, even though we might have to walk out different things, I thank you that you are good and you are never changing, and that we can stay firm and founded in you. And I thank you that you made this available to each and every one of us, and that we are free to welcome anyone to the table.